Welcome to episode 47 of the Free Spirit Academy podcast with emotional eating coach Georgina Gorringe. Free Spirit Academy is about you being fully you. My name is Randy Moss, and I'm an eating psychology coach and Kundalini yoga teacher, bringing you conversations about freedom. Largely from rigid diets and painful body image, but ultimately it's about the freedom to be yourself. This is about honoring our own bodies and our purest self-expression. Welcome to the podcast. So many memories pop up for me in this conversation, both while I was having it and while I was listening back and editing it. Everything from how I used to wish more than anything that I could be a normal eater, quote, normal eater, and or to how good I would feel when I ate food that I felt was good for me, that I had an idea about it being good for me, but how sour my day could go if I ate something that I saw as bad. My wife and I are about to head to St. Louis for a little over a week, and even that has been bringing up memories of how disastrous travel used to be. I would get into a cozy routine where, as long as my to-do list went as planned, as long as I had this very specific morning routine and ate my specific foods in a specific order at specific times, I could keep any emotional eating or binge eating to at least a minimum. And it was the best solution I had found. And I thought, well, that's just self-care. And even in the last episode, right, I mentioned all of these things. I talked a lot about the importance of self-care, having that foundation of a morning routine so that you can go in and do this work. But it really wasn't when I was doing it with the intention that I was doing it from. And I would see that because when I would travel, everything would just unravel. It would fall apart. If I couldn't do yoga, or if I ate a heavy lunch, or if I felt like I ate the wrong things because we went to a restaurant or to somebody's house, I would feel completely insane and I wouldn't be able to stop eating. So what I was doing clearly wasn't self-care, it was just control. And from the outside, you might not have been able to tell the difference, especially too, because a lot of these things, like I said, are still things that I value and still see as important. Space for meditation and moving my body and eating in a way that feels good. But also, if my routine goes totally wonky and I'm exhausted and I'm bloated and the day doesn't look like I think a good day should, I'm still fine. I have the flexibility to have life throw me curveballs, and it's my inner world that's shifted. Using my tools with the intention of getting to know my inner world rather than trying to change my outer world, which is a lot of what I work with clients. So this conversation with Georgina brought back memories and also just sparked a lot of great conversation on the journey of becoming well after chaotic or disordered eating, and how it's not always a straight shot or a quick fix or even a linear ABC sort of journey. We talk about the foundations that are necessary to have in place to even begin to address the emotional eating, where nutrition knowledge plays a role, and how to actually find what feels good with food and body and life, rather than just what would only support weight loss in hopes that then we'll feel good. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation with Georgina Gorringe. So something that you've said that I love is that the opposite of emotional eating isn't normal eating, it's self-acceptance and self-esteem. And I love this because I hear women say all the time, like, I just want to be a normal eater. And there's always so much stress in that. And I remember saying it too, like, I totally get it. And I'm generally thinking, though, you don't want to be a normal eater. You just want to be you, whatever that looks like in regards to food. And perhaps you want to be a peaceful eater, but I digress. I would love to hear about how you personally got onto this path. Because I know when we teach something, when we coach something, it's usually because we've walked the journey. So I assume there was a place when self-acceptance for you hadn't entered your life yet.
Yeah, absolutely. You're totally right. We teach what we most need to learn, right? And who can we better serve than a previous version of ourselves? So, of course, my whole journey is totally intertwined into what I do now and how I coach and the type of people that I want to help, or the type of problems that I want to help people with. So for me, I always felt like I had this strange relationship with food, and I felt like I was the only one who had this. I felt like, is anybody else feeling this pull to eat? Does anybody else find it so difficult to eat well and to not overindulge and to not comfort eat? And I kind of was like, how do you become one of those people who keeps a packet of biscuits in their cupboard and doesn't have to eat them all in one go? Like, that was just totally alien and strange to me because of this relationship with food that I had, and I never really understood it. And now that I do, I see it comes from a place of trying to fill a void, and perhaps that void, for some is a lack of self-acceptance, a lack of self-esteem, or a lack of respect for themselves. But I suppose where my emotional eating or comfort eating started was when I graduated from university. So I studied musical theatre, dance, singing, acting, and loved it. And then when I graduated from there, that sort of creative outlet slowly got lost, and I began to pull away from chasing that career. And I think that left a void, that left a hole, that left a space, and I didn't really know how to fill it or address it. And so I began filling it with food. And perhaps the emotional eating was a form of self-sabotage because I felt maybe guilty that I wasn't living up to my potential, or it felt like I was giving up. And so it was easy for me to just say, oh, maybe this industry isn't for me. But by consciously doing that, I wasn't addressing what was actually going on for me unconsciously. And so you can never really hide those feelings. So they come out in other ways. And for me, it was in my relationship with food.
Right. So then how was it manifesting? Like, were you dieting? Was there anything left over from being a performer, being on stage, being a dancer? Like, did you get comments in your direction that, your body needed to be a certain way, or were you just sort of taking in the world around you? Was the seed planted early on, or was it really just like afterwards, these feelings coming up that you were using food as a sort of painkiller for?
In terms of body image, I think growing up in the time when size 0 was the thing, and that's not a body ideal that I'm ever going to be able to fit into, which is totally fine. But when you're 15, 16, 17, and that's all you see on the front of magazines and on television, and feeling like that's the way I must look to be deemed beautiful or acceptable. So I did always feel a discomfort in my body in the way it looked. And then, that was only to be amplified when I went to university. Standing in front of a wall of mirrors all day, every day, is kind of the perfect place to build a habit of self-comparison and self-deprecation. So, I'd say being in that environment, and also being in an industry that is so based on the way you look and the way your body looks, definitely had an effect of me having a negative attitude towards my body, and always wanting it to be different and wanting to change it. So therefore, I would see food as either a category of foods that would help me lose weight, and a category of foods that would make me gain weight.
Yes.
That distorted sort of perception of my body distorted my perception of food.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then for you, was it a sort of like dieting, overeating loop that was going back and forth? Or was it your relationship with food was maybe just a little bit, the way you were looking at it was this sort of separate thing outside of yourself, and then the emotional eating was really the painful thing? Like, how was that manifesting?
After I graduated, I would be overeating, emotional eating. It would just be like a comfort thing in the evenings, but I never really paid a lot of attention to it. And then I found a new distraction of planning to go traveling. So that then kind of filled that void. Then I was like, I'm going to go traveling, and I can focus on that. And okay, I want to get fit and healthy to go traveling. So then I began exercising more, and I began sort of picking up bits of nutrition advice from my coach at the time. And they would say things like, I'd be like, what should I eat for breakfast? And they'd be like, eggs. So I'd be like, right, I must only eat eggs for breakfast. And then they would say, don't eat carbs, without really going into what that meant. So then I would stop eating bread, pasta, rice, potatoes. I wouldn't even eat chickpeas or couscous because I saw that as carbs. Like my nutritional knowledge was very, it didn't exist. And so I was kind of picking up on these little random things from coaches. And so then I would, just have quite a restrictive diet of rules of cutting out whole food groups. And then I found that even that's not a healthy relationship with food. Although I lost weight and was, felt better in my body, I still had this unhealthy relationship with food where it was like a battle. These are the things I should be eating to lose weight, and these are the things I shouldn't be eating. And so then every decision becomes difficult then, because you're telling yourself you can't have certain foods. And when you do that, it's kind of like, well, when you tell yourself you shouldn't be eating chocolate, that's all you think about, right? And it's harder to resist. Yes. It's kind of like saying, so like in meditation, when you are trying not to think and all you're thinking about is trying not to think, all that comes is more thoughts. Whereas if you just say to your mind, okay, go for it, think whatever you like, then usually your mind will go blank. And it's kind of like that with food. If you're saying don't eat that, it's going to be constantly there, being like in the forefront of your mind. Whereas if you're able to get to a place where you can go, do you know what, you can eat any food you want at any point, but then it becomes a choice and a decision. Then you then put yourself back in the powerful position to make a choice for you, rather than trying to resist things that you're telling yourself you shouldn't have.
Yes, which is such a powerful transition to make. And I was just thinking as you were talking how amazing it is that the most common advice is advice that disconnects us from our body, disconnects us from our home, our guidance system, this thing that carries us everywhere. But it's also because I feel like listening to your journey, it was still growth, these little areas. You went from this sort of unconscious overeating to like, I want to know, I want to learn, even if it was to fix your body. And maybe there was obviously probably a lot of subconscious pain there and not feeling good enough and whatever, but it was like, it was connecting a little bit because there was some limited knowledge coming in and you were doing something with it and trying it on, but then you get to a place where that doesn't work. So you have to take another step. And I know that you're really passionate about nutrition knowledge, like not just telling people that you shouldn't eat carbs for the sake of not eating carbs. Like you really want people to know why, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that was a real turning point in viewing food differently and viewing it as a way to look after my body, look after my health, to improve the longevity of my life, to prevent illness, to prevent diseases. Like once I understood what food actually did inside of me and why it's so important to have a wide variety of foods. We have an abundance of food for a reason. That's, because they all contain different macro and micronutrients that our body needs. We need a variety of all of them. So these types of diets or these ways of eating where you cut out whole food groups, or the ketogenic diet, or you see things where people are only eating grapefruit and eggs, or they limit your food choices, and people kind of think, that's the secret. Right. That's what I have to do. I have to follow this system and that will achieve weight loss. But it's like, if the human body, if the way to achieve optimum health is by eating these very narrow food choices, why do we have the rest of the foods? Why do they exist? So understanding what food's actually doing inside your body helped me to view food as a way to look after myself. And also when making food choices, it wasn't just those foods are healthy, they will make me lose weight. It's like those foods are good for me because of X, Y, and Z. And I know that they're going to keep me fuller for longer. They're not going to cause huge fluctuations in my blood sugar levels, which means I'm probably not going to get as tired. I'm probably not going to experience as many mood swings. I'm going to not be hungry again by, an hour later. Those kind of things really helped me with, shifting my beliefs about food or perception of food.
Right. I love that, because then you connected. So you're getting more nutrition knowledge, and then you're connecting it with your actual body and how you actually feel, which is what makes it real and makes our path our own, and not just something like you were talking about, how it's so easy to go, "Ooh, this is it. Like, I found the secret. It's just cutting out this food, or it's just going on that extreme thing." And it's never that. Like, we gather knowledge, and then we try it on in our own bodies, and we take our path, our journey, our wellness into our own hands.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that it's finding out what works for you. And, so many of these sort of meal plans or diets, they're so structured and limiting, and it's kind of madness, really. Like, yeah, okay, that might work, but there's probably like 100 other ways you could have got the same result that would have been easier for you, because it relates more to you and your routine and your habits and what you like and dislike and how you eat, how you shop.
Which requires actually being able to turn inwards and be like, what do I really like? And how do I actually want to live? And how does this actually fit in? Not like, how can I put this lifestyle on top of me, essentially, and force it to work?
Definitely. But I think it's something that the health and fitness industry, not as a whole, but can play on. The fact that we hold this knowledge that you don't have on food. We know the secret formula and you don't. Therefore, it's kind of like playing on the fact that people don't trust themselves to make the right decisions for themselves. And they need someone else to tell them, eat X, Y, and Z at this time and this amount. And they're like, okay, I will follow that, because they feel like if they don't have that, they're going to be like let loose and go crazy. But that's not the case. It's actually the complete opposite.
Yeah. I mean, so how did that play out for you when you were starting to let go maybe of some of this really intense diet rule stuff? Were you afraid that you couldn't trust yourself? Was it scary, or was it kind of a natural transition?
Well, you see, I would eat better. I would improve my eating habits. I would be exercising more, but then it was still this emotional eating that would still come up. I would still be, there'd be the odd occasion where I would binge if that kind of emotional trigger or situation came up. And although I was, healthy in my body, as in I'd lost weight and I was eating well for my 3 meals a day and I was exercising consistently, I still had that habit. And it was kind of like the last piece for me. So I don't know if I really ever feared that letting go of a structure in a diet, because I had managed to find my way into a healthy way of eating for the majority of time. I think after studying nutrition and getting into a routine. So that's kind of the course, the process that my courses take. We work on putting those foundation things in first of, getting into a routine of exercise, having a good morning routine just to set yourself up mentally for the day, building a bit of nutritional knowledge, making sure you get a good breakfast in, and kind of setting the foundation platform for you to then dive a little bit deeper into, why do you have those food rules or those beliefs? Why do you see food in 2 categories? Why do you think you're turning to food for comfort? Because that's kind of the natural progression was for me. But it was obviously
it was also,
I was going to say, it was like a 2-year journey for me to get to that point of building my nutritional knowledge, creating those better habits, getting into a routine of exercise, and then really addressing the emotional eating. So I want to be able to fast track people, by taking all of those tools and those things that helped me and condensing them into something that's gonna fast track people to that point. So I don't know whether I really feared letting go of the rules, but
that makes a lot of sense. And I love so much that you said this. Like, and I do this too with my clients. You have to build the foundation, right? Like, people just want to come in and address the emotional eating and be done with it, address the binge and be done with it. But it's like, you can't. If you're starving yourself in the morning, or if you're only eating one food group and you're feeling crazy and you're all over the place, then of course you're going to be eating in the night. And that's not even like necessarily emotional eating. That's probably trying to meet some nutritional needs.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a morning routine, then you're not connecting with yourself probably. And if you don't have self-care, like all of the stuff that you said, it's foundation. We absolutely have to have that, because then you can't ask the questions. You were mentioning a few things, and I wanted to pick them apart bit by bit. But you talk a lot about addressing emotional hunger. So say somebody has all of their foundations in place. They have their morning routine. They're eating. They're eating when they need to eat. They're eating well. They're nourishing themselves, but they still have this sort of emotional hunger. How do you begin addressing that with somebody?
Yeah. I often will firstly want to just bring awareness to the behavior and the triggers. When does it normally happen? Is there a theme? Is there a pattern? Is it usually after work? Is there a certain emotion? Is it tiredness? Is it always stress? Is it an argument? Trying to think about what happens before you usually turn to food for comfort. What's the underlying feeling? What are the things that you're saying to yourself in those moments? And just being more aware of it. I encourage my clients to journal a lot, yes. To be able to process things and to be able to answer those types of questions, to sit down and really think about it. Because I think, that's something that I certainly didn't do. And I don't think it comes naturally for us to do that. But it's such a simple and powerful tool. And, they will usually start to get the insights just by becoming more aware of it. And then once they're aware of what that underlying feeling is, then you can start to address ways to better deal with that. So if it's stress, it's like, okay, so if your kind of unconscious habit at the moment is you feel stressed, you turn to food. What would be a better way to manage that emotion? What activity or thing can you do that's going to benefit you in those times? And then they might come up with a few different ideas, and then you can try, replacing the habit of eating with that behavior, which is a big jump. So it's quite difficult, but just becoming aware of why you're turning to food for comfort and what might be better ways to manage it. Also, I would look at the self-talk, like, is there a pattern of words and phrases that you're saying to yourself in those moments? What would be more helpful things to be saying to yourself in those moments? And can you just start to become more aware of your thoughts? And are you able to then to intercept them? I say, like, a lot of motivation is your ability to win those conversations that you're having with yourself. But to do that, first of all, you need to become aware of them. So yeah, it's kind of going through those steps. And perhaps if you're someone who's, affirmations work for you, you can think about what those more helpful, more positive phrases that you're saying to yourself. What could you be saying to yourself in those times that's going to be more helpful, and repeating them, writing them down as part of your morning routine. So they're in the forefront of your mind when you start the day. Or maybe then you'll just become more aware of that negative self-talk when it starts creeping in. And then you'll kind of have like that other side of you that can then intercept and override that part, and hopefully put you in a stronger position to change that behavior or do something that is really going to help you. Because I think a lot of the time people aren't really sure why they do it. They're like, I don't really know.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Because I think that when we do know, that's when things change. And when we know from a really embodied place, that's when things change.
Yeah. Because then you can think, oh, it's actually stress, or it's actually tiredness, or perhaps it is a lot deeper, and it is this feeling of maybe shame or loneliness or not feeling good enough. And then you can then start to work to parent that part of you.
Yes.
And to, and start to actually really care for yourself, because turning to food isn't caring for yourself, although it's a coping mechanism. It's when you don't have any other tools to look after that part of yourself or to accept that feeling, then food is just the easiest place to turn, because it's available, it's right there. It immediately gives you endorphins or feel good feelings for a moment.
Yes, so, right, absolutely. We have to look at it's meeting a need. Like, we can get so down on ourselves for emotional eating or for whatever the thing is that we do that we're upset at ourselves for, but it's always meeting a need. And I think just softening into that and encouraging people to be like, okay, this has been me doing my best for a really long time. And then, like you said, what are other ways that I can meet this need? Because maybe, like, what are we missing? Maybe we don't have an outlet for our creativity, or maybe we don't have a way of caring for ourselves and giving ourselves our own attention, giving ourselves maybe parenting that we didn't get, that we needed when we were small. All of that. So, because you can't just like take away emotional eating and then that's it.
No.
This huge hole is there. There's so much pain there. It's, if you do that, then you're just going to hop to another coping thing.
Exactly. And that's why you can look to sort of replace the behavior with something else. But again, is that really addressing it? Yeah. Or are you still just sort of skipping over it? But I mean, because people come at different levels of readiness to address certain things. So you can give tools and strategies and ideas to help manage it. But you can't really force someone to really face it. So you kind of just feel from them really how deeply are they willing to meet themselves, and kind of just give them what they need at the pace they need.
Absolutely.
But, sometimes it's not even like they need to do anything. Sometimes it is just validating how they feel, acknowledging how they feel, and letting it be there without having to distract themselves from it, because we're very fearful of these emotions. We judge them. We feel like it's a personal failure if you feel lonely or if you feel rejected. And I don't know whether it's your upbringing or society or even social media, that we have this pressure to be seen as this very well put together, positive, happy human being that doesn't have any problems or issues. And if you do, that's when you feel like, I'm failing. This isn't what humans are supposed to be like. So you just will push it away, and that's when you'll then cling on to these different vices to distract yourself from feeling that, because you're just not allowing yourself, you're judging yourself from feeling it. So maybe the answer is literally, it's okay to feel a bit lonely sometimes. It will pass. It's okay to feel a bit stressed. It will pass.
Yes, and I think that takes such a load off. And I love how you address the physical, the mental, and the emotional. Because so you've got the physical, you're making sure that people eat, that people are nourished, that they're understanding why it's important to nourish yourself, using food as self-care. And then the mental, where we're questioning, like, what am I believing about myself? And is this even true? And does this even feel good? And what could possibly be more true, more empowering, more uplifting? And then the emotional side, which is, it's okay to feel lonely. It's okay to feel sad. It's safe to feel these things. That doesn't make you a bad person.
Yeah. And it's powerful as well when you realize you can do that.
Yeah. It's so powerful. Oh my God, to feel your emotions.
To allow yourself and to not judge yourself for them, and to be able to sit with them and see that they will pass, because then you're not afraid of them anymore. You know that the world isn't going to end if you just kind of embrace that. And also you can learn a lot about yourself. You deepen your connection with yourself. And by doing that, you deepen your connections in your relationships and in everything you do.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about something that you were saying earlier about how you were looking at food as basically like, these foods make me fat, these foods make me thin. Would you talk about, either in your relationship with food or in the clients that you see, how we can attach our self-worth or morality to our food choices?
Yeah, so you feel like you're a bad person if you binge eat, or you feel like you're a really good person if you eat a salad. I used to do that. I used to just be really, really hard on myself if I was binge eating, or if I had something bad, and it is because we attach that label, the way you detach your self-worth from that is realizing that you are more than your body. Like, your self-worth shouldn't be placed in your body. Like, you love your friends for who they are, you love your family for who they are. If they gain or lose weight, you don't care. You really don't. But for some reason, I thought people cared. I thought people would like me more if I was thinner, if I was more athletic. I genuinely thought it was going to make me a better person. So the more I was moving myself away from that by, eating these foods I viewed as bad and gaining weight, it made me feel like I was less likable in my own view and in the view of others, which is just crazy. But I think it's the environment that I grew up in. It's the diet culture, or the whole thing with size zero, and perhaps my musical theatre. I really did attach my self-worth to my body image. So yeah, I think that's why I would feel like a bad person, or my self-worth was attached to my food choices as well, because it obviously had a knock-on effect then of my body.
I think that's an easy way of distracting ourselves from what we're feeling too. Like if we're generally in life feeling stressed or whatever, like we'll just blanket everything under stress. If you can feel like I'm good as long as I'm eating these foods, that feels so good. But as soon as you eat one bad thing, like your whole day is shot. But you can kind of stay in this emotional roller coaster between the good and the bad. And it's this whole giant drama. And then underneath, you're never addressing, oh, I'm lonely. Oh, I'm sad. Oh, I want to change this about my life. And it's really powerful.
Yeah, definitely. It's just like another way to not, because addressing how you're really feeling is scary. saying that you want to lose weight is easy.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. And speaking of body image, I love a post of yours that I saw when you were talking about body goals. And you were like, your body goals have to be your body. And you were talking about, and I want you to talk about this, and I want you to talk about your whole thing about celebrity diet endorsements, because you're,
oh God,
about that is so funny. And I want to link some of that down below. Like the comedy you do is it's potent, because you look at it and you laugh and then you're like, oh God, that's serious. And I think it gets people to look at things in a totally different way if they haven't seen it from that angle yet.
I mean, I guess it's kind of just giving a broader view of what's actually going on here. Like, I feel like we may not be paying that much attention to it. Like, oh, here's a celebrity posting a photoshopped photo of their body, selling some weight loss sachets. We're like, okay, whatever, scroll past it. But like, what's actually happening here? Like, and that's kind of what I wanted to draw attention to in those videos by taking the mick out of them, really, just by shining light on how ridiculous it is. How can a weight loss drink suppress your appetite and reduce your bloating? Like, the claims are just ridiculous, and the way it's promoted is just ridiculous, and the knock-on effect on it is serious. You know, you're selling lies to young, impressionable teenage girls. They are seeing a fake, body shape, whether it's photoshopped or surgically enhanced, or it's just an optical illusion from the way that someone's standing. And you're saying, drink this and you'll look like me. And it's just not a nice message. Like, surely we should be just look after yourself, love yourself, accept yourself the way you are. If you want to lose weight and improve your body shape, cool. If you don't, cool. Like, as long as you're happy with who you are and you go to bed feeling content and proud of yourself every night, you're doing good. Like, so yeah, it's just kind of how irresponsible it is, and how the celebrities that endorse it, are they not thinking about those young teenage girls? Like, but surely they would have been subjected to that at some point in their lives too, and it's perhaps the reason why they are taking extreme measures to change their body shapes, like surgery. They're kind of just perpetuating the problem. And I feel like it's changing now. I think there's a lot of big Instagram influencers pulling other celebrity influencers up on it, which is nice to see. And actually, Kim Kardashian, it was in BBC News actually recently about how they're going to crack down on influencers selling these things. So it's worth speaking up about, because it will bring about change, hopefully.
Seriously, especially because the young girls, they aren't going to see the big picture. They aren't going to see, I mean, like you were saying, first of all, that they may see Photoshop because that's out there and people talk about that, but they may not be thinking about the plastic surgery or the really expensive trainers, or how hard they probably have to work anyways to have their body, or how genetic it may very well be, and how much money they're getting just to have a body, which may or may not be what you're seeing in the picture.
Yeah, and that's the thing about, your body goals must be your body. I used to follow a lot of fitness accounts of very lean, athletic looking women. And I wanted that. And the more accounts that I followed, obviously the more feeds would be filled up with that. And the more I would unconsciously compare myself to that on a daily basis. Yes. Like, I'd be scrolling and being like, if only I look like that, then I'd be happy. And you'd be looking at someone else's body, and And you see it as well on Facebook groups that I've been a part of, like fitness Facebook groups, where women will screenshot a photo of another body, post it in the group and say, this is my body, girl. Do you think this is possible for me? And it's like, no, because it's not your body. Like, you can't, of course you can transform your body composition and the way your body looks, but it needs to be a version of your body. You know, you can't be like, oh, I wish I had, you know, I used to wish I had longer legs, and it used to really bother me that I had short legs because of all of these models I was seeing on magazines, you know. And if I'm going to be upset about that, like, I'm going to be upset for the rest of my life because I'm not going to be able to make my legs longer. So yeah, it's about, you know, accepting your body, and even, you know, even those parts that you wish you could change.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. And I probably shouldn't talk about a study if I can't like quote where the study comes from. I think I heard this in my eating psychology training about how there was a study that women, like whatever body type that we're seeing the most of ends up being what we want. So if in whatever culture you grow up in, you see, you know, an hourglass figure and, you know, just a certain shape, that ends up being what you want. Or if you see the women around you have very slim hips and they look like little stick figures, that's what you want. And also, it's empowering because you can expose yourself consciously to body types that are more like yours in a range of fitness types and weights and whatever, and end up actually, like your desires can shift. Like the more you see a certain thing, the more you actually want that thing. And I think that we can consciously use that and take in people that look like us and begin to see the beauty in that.
Yeah, totally. I think a lot of women's body issues or self-esteem issues are attached to the current body trend of the time.
Yeah.
So it's size zero, you know, size zero, and then it was the thigh gap. Now it's kind of disproportionately curvy hips. And it's like, okay, if you fit into that ideal, cool. Like, you're great, you're good, you can love your body. But if you don't, then you see this array of products and programs emerge to help people achieve that body ideal. And then people cash in on that. Mm-hmm. You know, all these sort of like booty building programs and you know, but before, when I was growing up, like having a booty wasn't the thing. It was, you know, to be model thin and,
yep.
And it's just like, you kind of trying to adjust how you feel about your body to the body trend of the time. And it's like, there's always going to be a new trend. There's always going to be something. I don't know what the next one will be, but it won't be disproportionately curvy hips and a big bum. It will be something totally different. And then what? Then we're all supposed to adjust and shift to that. But yeah, just kind of.
And there can be so much shame tied up in it. Like I remember growing up and not even really having any idea that I had basically like no ass. That's just how I'm shaped. But it never occurred to me. But now as an adult, I see it and I have moments of feeling kind of embarrassed and almost apologetic. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're going there. Like, it's just that the cultural conditioning starts to seep in. And thankfully I have enough awareness to be like, whoa, like look at what you've been taking in and what's really true. And you know, it's crazy.
Yeah, and it is dangerous. But I just think there is more. Luckily, there is more and more, you know, body positive ambassadors out there, and we are seeing different body types. Like, you see them on, I think I've seen like TV ads of various like online shopping platforms have totally different body shapes. I saw Gymshark even use different body shapes the other day, and I was like, hallelujah! Have you heard of Gymshark? The gym leggings. Oh, okay. But like, it's just always the same body type that you see. But then you just start seeing, just a huge variety of body shapes. And it's just so nice to see. And it's so needed. So yeah, I just hope that continues. And I think it is. Like, it's much better than when I was growing up, I'd say.
And I think very rapidly too, because I think even for a while when I was getting into, you know, just body positivity or just taking in different body types than what maybe the cultural norm was for a while, even if you punched in body positivity, you still got sort of the same shape. It was like a little curvier, but like an hourglass figure always. And I was like, even if I put on weight, that's not what I look like. And but I think now, even just as the months roll by, people are becoming way more, what you find out there is way more diverse. Which is really encouraging.
Yeah, I think people have just had enough. Yeah. And I think the advertising marketing companies are having to listen now because they're probably just getting inundated now.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So I know one of your big things is supporting women. Do you work just with women? I know you say you work with millennials.
Yeah, just with women.
Okay. So supporting women to shift their food obsession to a life obsession. And I love that.
Yeah.
And there's a tool of yours that you've shared that I'd love for you to share here that supports us in beginning to meet our emotional needs that perhaps we've been using food for, to kind of start to list out some of the things that perhaps we could begin to play with or that would excite us. Would you mind sharing that?
Yeah, of course. So one of the things I found was I was turning to food for comfort because I wasn't feeling fulfilled in kind of my day-to-day activities, or I'd neglected things that I actually loved doing. And having a creative outlet, I realized was very, very important to me, because I noticed the pattern of when my emotional eating would come back or get worse would be when I'd kind of neglected, certain things that provided a creative outlet, or just things that I enjoyed doing. That I think we forget there's all these things that we do as children that we love, and then as we get older, obviously our responsibilities of bills and families and having to go to work take priority, and then we just forget all of those things. So this was just a really simple exercise that I actually got from a journal that I use every morning, called a happiness planner. And it was one of the beginning exercises in there, and it asks you to just write down a list of 10 things that make you happy. So it could be anything like going for a walk along the seafront, speaking on the phone with one of your close friends, taking yoga classes, eating well, whatever it is that makes you happy. Write down 10 of those things, and then scale them on a scale, rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 of how happy they make you. So 10 being the most. So then you can put a value to each thing, and then start to think about how often should you be doing those things. Can you do them daily, weekly, monthly, or yearly? If it's traveling or going to a new destination, obviously that would be something you do yearly. If it's something like taking a walk along the seafront, maybe it's weekly. And then you can just start to see what you've neglected, what you can start to prioritize, and how often. And then you can actually get your planner out and think, okay, I'm going to start scheduling these things in, and then they will happen. Because I think we all so easily just say, oh, I really love drawing or singing, or I'd really love to go to like a salsa class, or one of my she's not a client of mine, but I talk to her often on Instagram, and she's done one of my free challenges. I had a chat with her, and she was like, I used to love ballroom dancing. And I was like, go to a ballroom class, that could be just the start of, your in of feeling more fulfilled and doing things for yourself that make you feel good. And that will just have a ripple effect. We kind of think, how can this be related to my food choices? But it is all linked, so that exercise is just really helpful, just to go, hey, why don't I do these things for myself? We put ourselves at the bottom of the list of priorities, especially if you've got a family to look after. I'm always amazed by, 2 of my clients that I've got at the moment have got kids, and it just, 3 of them actually, and it just amazes me. I'm like, wow, you're doing all of this stuff for yourself and looking after a family, you're a superwoman. So I understand how all of these things get neglected and you get to the bottom of the pile, but this exercise kind of helps you to see that you're doing that, and to schedule in these things that are going to make you feel good. And then what you do is you write down 10 things that make you unhappy. And when I did this exercise, there were things like, skipping the gym for a week, not eating well, drinking, and you sort of realize these things that you don't actually really like doing. And then you will rate them on a scale of 1 to 10 of how much they affect you. So 10 being the most. So how unhappy do these things make you? And then the really powerful part is you will circle or underline all of those things that you actually have the power to change. And this was the really interesting thing, because I was like, wow, I have got the power to change all of those things that are making me unhappy or bringing me down. And then the next part of that is, okay, how can I start to change this? Yes. And then you come up with some actual, actionable steps that you can begin to take to reduce those things, take those things out, or ways to work around them or manage them. And then you've just got this great sort of plan in front of you to bring yourself up and manage the things that are bringing yourself down. And it's so simple, but whoever sits down and thinks, what do I like doing? What don't I like doing? How can I change that? But it just, so just having that like little exercises can be really powerful.
I love it. It's so simple though, but often I feel like we look at that sort of thing and maybe you think about it and you're like, oh, that's very simple. How nice. Maybe I'll do that sometime. But to actually do it is really powerful, because the second point, like writing down all the things that you don't like, that takes you out of autopilot. That gets you actually looking at your life and realizing like, oh, this stuff doesn't have to happen this way. I don't have to do these things if this isn't something that really is in alignment with who I am or is supportive to me. And the first piece is acknowledging, oh, I don't have to wait for weight loss to be happy. I don't have to change my body to do these things. It's not like someday when I reach this goal, then I'll do these things. It's like, no, that's not necessary at all now.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about looking at things that are going to make you feel good, not just doing things that you think are going to make you weigh less.
Yes.
Yeah, I think often we approach this stuff with like, how can I weigh less? And then we start doing stuff that doesn't make us feel good. We don't like doing. We might hate spinning, but we might be forcing ourselves to go to a spin class because we think we're going to lose weight. And it's like, you can move your body any way you like. And also when you do that, you might find that some of the things on your happiness list are things that you've been resisting. If one of the things that makes you happy is going to exercise classes or going to a yoga class, but you've been putting it off, and then it makes you think, well, if that makes me happy, why aren't I doing that?
Yeah. And I think too, sometimes the power of working with somebody, working with a coach, is that, like for me, years ago when I did exercises like this, I would do them kind of like you're saying, in order to lose weight or in order to stick to my diet. Like, okay, I'll make this list and then I'll lose weight because I'm doing these things right. Instead of actually getting in touch with myself and being like, oh, weight or no weight, like what would actually feel really, really good. And sometimes it's good to have an outside perspective pointing that out if you have a tendency to go that route.
Yeah, absolutely. Something came into my head then. And quite often the things that make you feel good will be things that will improve your health. Totally. But then it is coming from a place of, I'm doing this for me because it makes me feel good. And it just shifts the whole perception of looking after yourself or eating well or exercising. And another one that I really love is, instead of saying I've got to go to the gym or I've got to do this, it's like I get to do this.
And only if that's true, like only if you really are excited to do that. And maybe it takes a little friction and maybe it's a little hard, but it should only ever be a little bit. Because I really think like if our bodies need to lose weight, it should be as a result of doing the things that feel good to do.
Yeah. And it's never really about the weight loss. You can lose weight and still be unhappy.
Totally. Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened with me. I know I lost weight, but I still had this emotional eating problem that I had to, and I still probably attached my self-worth to my body. My weight does fluctuate, not massively, but I don't attach my self-worth to that anymore. Whereas before I would. If I gained a bit of weight, I'd be like, oh no, this is bad. How do I get back to that weight I was before? And my clients don't weigh themselves.
Amazing.
We never really talk about, oh, how much weight have you lost? We don't at all. I'd never bring it up. Halfway through, I'll say, okay, if you guys want to do a progress check-in, you can, because they do take pictures before and they take measurements, just because some people like to see the effect these things have had on their body shape. But it's not like a mandatory thing. It's like halfway through, if you want to do a check-in, go for it. But on the calls and the things that we're doing, it's all focused on your habits, your routine, and how are you feeling. And the weight loss is kind of just like a side note.
Yes, amazing. And what is the name of your program?
The You to You Habit Hack.
Awesome. And so we'll link that in the show notes, as well as any other things that you have to offer, all of your social media stuff. And the one last question that I like to ask people, this is the Free Spirit Academy podcast. And when I talk about a free spirit, my personal definition is just you getting to be yourself, which I think this whole conversation has ultimately been about. When you hear the term free spirit, what comes to mind for you?
To be a free spirit, let me think about that. If you're a free spirit, then I think you embrace every aspect of yourself. You don't, you try and encompass everything, the good and the bad. You know, you have a deep self-awareness, and you're able to, just accept all parts of yourself. And that, that frees you then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Amazing. Thank you so much for this.
No, it's been my pleasure. It's been really great to chat with you. So yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Fantastic. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. For more on food and body freedom, get my free ebook, The Eat to Feel Good Diet, by signing up for newsletter updates at freespirit-academy.com. I will be back with you next week.